Morbid Facts, Part 783. On October 19, 2025, 18-year-old Kimber Mills was celebrating with friends at a bonfire in Alabama when 27-year-old Steven Tyler Whitehead showed up uninvited, a stranger to nearly everyone there. Witnesses say he began harassing people at the party before pulling out a gun and firing into the crowd. Kimber, who had never even met the man, was struck in the head and leg. Her friend Silas McKay, who intervened and tried to protect her, was shot several times but survived after multiple emergency surgeries. Kimber was rushed to UAB hospital in critical condition, but her brain injuries proved irreversible. As her family made the heartbreaking decision to remove her from life support, hundreds of classmates, teachers, and nurses lined the halls for her honor walk, a silent tribute to a girl whose compassion lived on through others. Her heart went to a 7-year-old boy and her lungs to another patient in need, an ending that reflected the kindness she'd hoped to share as a future nurse. Whitehead has been charged with murder and multiple counts of attempted murder, but has yet to fully explain why he opened fire that night, leaving a community completely shattered by his senseless act of violence. Morbid Facts, Part 782. In 2004, 23-year-old Florida teacher Deborah LaFave was arrested for having an illegal relationship with her 14-year-old student, in other words, raping him, after the boy's aunt caught them together and alerted his mother. What made the case even more disturbing was the public's reaction. Instead of outrage, much of the media fixated on her looks, calling her too pretty for prison, and treating the abuse like a scandalous affair rather than a crime. She pled guilty in 2005 and was sentenced to 3 years of house arrest, 7 years of probation, and lifetime registration as a sex offender, but never spent a single day in prison. These were the final texts sent by Eddie Justice as he hid in the bathroom during the 2016 Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando, one of the deadliest mass shootings in American history. For 3 terrifying hours, the gunman roamed the club and executed anyone he saw, killing 49 and wounding 53. Victims tried to barricade doors, play dead, or call loved ones as SWAT teams surrounded the building. When police finally stormed in and killed him, the scene inside was pure horror. Bodies stacked all over, blood flooding the dance floor, and phones still ringing in the pockets of victims. In 1978, 15-year-old Mary Vincent was hitchhiking through California when 51-year-old Lawrence Singleton offered her a ride, a decision that would lead to one of the most horrific crimes in modern history. After gaining her trust, Singleton bound her with rope, brutally sexually assaulted her for several hours, and hacked off both of her arms with a hatchet before throwing her off a 30-foot cliff to die. But Mary somehow found the strength to try and survive. Naked, pouring blood, and mutilated, she packed mud into her wounds to slow the bleeding, then crawled up the steep mountain and walked for miles down a deserted road, leaving a trail of blood behind her. The first car that saw her sped away in shock, but a honeymooning couple eventually stopped and saved her life, wrapping her in towels and racing her to help. While barely clinging to consciousness, Mary gave police a description so accurate that it led to Singleton's arrest within days. But despite the unimaginable brutality of his crime, Singleton served only 8 years before being released on good behavior, and just over a decade later, he struck again just like Mary said he would. In 1997, police found the body of 31-year-old mother of 3 Roxanne Hayes inside his home, stabbed multiple times and left in a pool of blood, murdered after he lured her inside under false pretenses. Singleton was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to death, but died of cancer in prison in 2001 while awaiting execution. Mary survived, learned to live with prosthetic arms, and became an artist and advocate for victims' rights. Morbid Facts, Part 305. In 1996, 14-year-old Barry Lukaitis opened fire on his high school algebra class in Washington State, killing 2 fellow students and the teacher. As his classmates were panicking, Barry was quoted saying, "This sure beats the hell out of algebra, doesn't it?" He's currently serving out a 189-year prison sentence for the murders. In 1982, 28-year-old fencing legend Vladimir Smirnov was killed at the World Fencing Championship when a broken foil pierced his mask, entered his eye socket, and penetrated his brain. The incident is why fencing uniforms now require Kevlar as a standard. In 2017, a 13-year-old boy died after his classmate threw a piece of cheese at him. The boy suffered from multiple severe allergies, including dairy, and was sent into anaphylactic shock soon after the cheese made contact with his neck. The classmate told authorities that he was only playing around and didn't realize that the boy suffered from a severe allergy. Morbid Facts, Part 784. In 2003, 17-year-old Jessica Santillan came to the U.S. from Mexico with her family, who had crossed the border illegally in a desperate bid to save her life. Jessica suffered from a congenital heart defect, and after years of struggling to breathe, Duke University Hospital agreed to perform a rare and risky heart and lung transplant. The operation began as a miracle in motion until everything went wrong. The organs Duke transplanted came from a donor with the wrong blood type. Jessica was O positive, the donor was type A. Within a few hours, her body went into violent rejection. Her skin turned purple, her body swelled, and doctors realized the unthinkable mistake. They'd given her incompatible organs. 2 weeks later, they found a new donor and performed a second transplant, but Jessica never woke up. She was declared brain dead on February 22nd, 15 days after the first transplant. A family who risked everything to save their daughter lost her to a clerical error, and her death forced hospitals nationwide to overhaul how transplants are verified forever. Morbid Facts, Part 682. In 2007, Miles Teller narrowly survived a horrific car crash when the vehicle he was inside of flipped 8 times at nearly 80 miles per hour, ejecting him through a window and flinging his body over 30 feet. He was found unconscious and covered in blood, with deep facial gashes and a broken wrist, injuries that required years of painful laser treatments. As if that weren't enough, within the next year, Miles lost 2 of his closest friends in separate vehicle accidents just weeks apart. One was killed in a motorcycle crash and the other in a car accident, both devastating losses that deeply affected Teller in his early 20s. As a result, the actor developed a profound sense of gratitude and now takes nothing for granted, an outlook that deeply influences both his personal life and career. In 1992, Annette Herfkens was the sole survivor of a plane crash that killed all 30 others on board, including her fiancé. The aircraft went down in the remote Vietnamese jungle just 50 minutes into the flight. Trapped inside the mangled wreckage with a collapsed lung, broken ribs, and surrounded by rotting corpses, she was too injured to leave the crash site. For 8 days, she fought to stay alive by drinking rainwater as the stench of death closed in. As her body weakened, she even considered cannibalizing the bodies around her, but didn't have the strength for it. When rescuers finally arrived, she was barely conscious, buried in wreckage and decay next to the corpse of the love of her life, but she eventually made a full recovery. Here are some morbid facts about Robert Downey Jr. As a child, Robert was always completely surrounded by drugs. His father introduced him to marijuana when he was only 6 years old and allowed him to start drinking when he turned 8. By the time he became a teenager, Robert had already been addicted to heroin, cocaine, and prescription pills. Shortly after escaping from rehab in 1996, Downey Jr. was pulled over by cops while driving down the Sunset Strip. He was high, naked, and throwing imaginary rats out of his car window. He was later found in possession of cocaine, heroin, and a .375 Magnum, eventually earning him a prison sentence once he violated parole. While incarcerated, RDJ was often targeted by other inmates for his celebrity status. He was consistently attacked and would sometimes wake up in a pool of his own blood. After more than 30 years as an addict, Robert thanked Burger King for finally getting him off drugs. In 2003, he had a burger that was so disgusting it made him rethink his whole life, and he dumped all of his drugs into the ocean. This was referenced in the first Iron Man movie, when Tony Stark is seen eating Burger King before a press conference during which he would turn his life around.